This is what everyone knows Newcastle for, football. But I'm going to tell you about something much, much better.
They want to know about Islam, we'll give them da'wah. They want to know what a Muslim does, we'll give them da'wah. When they want to hate on...
In 2012, I was a non-Muslim who walked into my local masjid. I met the brothers there from IDC. This was a team of brothers who told me about the message of Islam in detail. I took my shahada. The brothers, they didn't just leave me there. You know, they supported me, provided me new Muslim classes, and after all these years, I became the head of the new Muslim department here at IDC, teaching other new Muslims, supporting them and mentoring them, just like I was supported. IDC is not just your typical charity. We have our Islamic awareness stalls engaging with non-Muslims in our local city centre and answering all their questions about Islam, public events and exhibitions for non-Muslims to come learn about Islam, masjid visits for the local community, school visits teaching non-Muslim kids and staff about Islam. We visit the elderly and spend time with them regularly to give them companionship, feeding the homeless every single week, giving them hot meals and advice. We make the children smile every single year by visiting them in the hospitals and giving them gifts. So many people have taken their shahada with us.
أشهد أن
لا
لا
إله
إله
إلا الله.
Because of this, we then provide new Muslim classes for them and support them on their journey. Please, please, please give whatever you can. Do you know how much you can afford? Better than myself. Some of us can give £10, some of us can give £500. And every single person that accepts Islam, you will get a portion of that reward. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said that charity does not decrease our wealth. So brothers and sisters, believe in those words and give for the sake of Allah. And Allah, inshallah, will increase it for you. Click the button and donate now.
They want to know about Islam, we'll give them da'wah. They want to know what a Muslim does, we'll give them da'wah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Newcastle Fast FM. This is the show From Darkness to Light with myself, Richard Coupland, and it is sponsored by Richard McLeod. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. It's the end. Alhamdulillah, this is the final show. We've been doing a show every single day throughout the month of Ramadan. Brothers and sisters, if you've been following us, you've seen that we talked about different topics. Convert stories, people experiences in the da'wah, the simple life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We looked at some issues related to Eid. We looked at some topics related to the sciences of hadith, culture in Islam, various different topics. And brothers and sisters, if you can hear me or not, please do comment in the chat if the audio is clear. But inshallah, I brought my one and only, my very special guest onto the show. And what we wanted to do is to talk about a very interesting topic which I think is vital to talk about. So inshallah, I will bring them on. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
How you doing?
I'm good. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I only saw you a minute ago, but it's all good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, yeah, chilling.
Happy to be back for the third week, yeah? I
am, yeah. Honoured to be on the final show, definitely.
Yeah, it's on our final show, Ramadan, coming to an end. Alhamdulillah, they announced it's going to be Saudi Arabia side of the moon. It's going to be on a Sunday. So yeah, only today and tomorrow left.
Yep. It's crazy how quickly it's gone. It's absolutely crazy.
Definitely, I think, especially this year, it's quite a different dynamic for myself. Going from not being married, it not being the coronavirus, it's been a very different. But alhamdulillah, I think I've enjoyed it. It's been busy. We've been non-stop doing different things.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
Definitely.
So today, we had a discussion. What should we talk about? What sort of topic do we feel comfortable with? And we sort of settled upon speaking about racism in Islam and colorism. I feel like there's lots of things to talk about. There's many narrations on this. There's many issues we see in the Muslim community. For yourself, why did you feel like this was a good topic to speak about?
Because I think ultimately it's a hidden issue. It's, no one wants to admit, that there's racism going on, or that, anyone is a racist. No one will ever openly admit that. But I think it is a massive, massive issue within the Muslim community. And it's something that we need to address and we need to be aware of, so that, we ourselves don't end up getting caught up in it.
Definitely. What I find interesting is obviously there are stereotypes, and maybe we can't judge all cultures like this. But for example, often Arabs will look down upon people of a darker skin complexion or people that are non-Arab. Often they say Bengalis will look down on non-Bengalis, Pakistanis look down on Bengalis, and different things like this. Do you think
Yeah.
those stereotypes are true? Do you think that there is underlying within those communities those stereotypes, or do you think it's people make it bigger than it is?
I mean, let's go back to the start, the definition of racism. It's to define it. It says it's prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race, based on the belief that one's own race is superior. And I think superior is the key word here. You know, whether you might not necessarily, even if you don't think that another race is bad, or you don't necessarily, you might not feel disgusted by them, or this is what often a lot of people think racism is. It's that innate thinking that no, I'm superior to them because of maybe my skin color, or maybe the way my culture does something, or maybe where I come from. My country is richer than his or her country. So I think it can manifest itself in many, many different ways. But I do think it's definitely, as I say, it's a big issue, and maybe it's because it comes down to maybe the way we've been brought up. Sorry, but yeah, I think it's a large issue, because again, even if it's not always out there publicly, sometimes it is there within our minds, if that makes sense, and therefore it affects the way we end up treating people.
So you think often on the surface you won't see it, but deep down in grade, subconsciously, there is that sort of feeling of superiority between different races? I think people have
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, we can't generalize. I mean, that's the first thing to say. We can't, say everyone is racist and every single race thinks of this like this. But it is quite common. If you think about things like even the mosques that are in different cities, how are they often split up? They often split up, oh, this
That's
is
the
the
Pakistani
Pakistani mosque.
masjid, that's the
Yeah,
Somali masjid, the Bengali, the Arab.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, some people might argue that that's because, when communities started immigrating here, that was the way it was done. Communities got together and they built these masjids, and hence why, it's called like that. But the issue is that 30, 40 years later on, why is it that, for example, the Bengali mosque, only Bengalis will go. It's the Pakistani mosque. It's not really multicultural. It's not really open. It may be open in terms of it's publicly not closed to everyone, but
Yeah, well,
mentally,
I know many brothers, especially, I know convert brothers, people from different races, they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable maybe going to the masjid that is the Pakistani masjid, because maybe they're going to go in and people are going to look at them strangely. And I know I've heard some situations of some convert brothers trying to go to the masjid and them not letting them in, thinking, oh, this person isn't really a Muslim and things like this. Sometimes it can be quite off-putting. But where do you think it comes from? Because, there's many verses in the Quran, many hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many stories of the companions that clearly tell us that this concept of racism and thinking one is superior to somebody else based on their skin color or their race or their ethnicity is wrong. So how come we still sort of see this in the community? Do you think it's people's nationalism? Do you think it's people lack of knowledge? Where do you feel it comes from? Because often I feel like many people are religious who maybe under the surfaces have these feelings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it comes from fear. Ultimately, it comes from fear of the unknown. It's scary maybe mixing with someone of a completely different race, or it's scary to see how things are done. And it's again with anything and everything, when you're scared of something and when there's that fear, you tend to sort of kind of make that thing seem inferior, seem scarier than it really is, in a way to almost avoid it.
True. Okay.
So I think maybe it's changing, but I think certainly especially for those whose parents have come from.
Hello. We seem to lost you. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you. What were you saying? Saying parents that have come from abroad.
Yeah, so maybe for those people whose parents have come from different countries, who necessarily won't have grown up in a multicultural environment, won't have mixed with other cultures. Again, it's just that fear of oh, what if they're too different, or what if there's just something not quite right about this group of people.
So do you think it's because of lack of mixing? Like maybe people stayed in their own areas, they didn't mix with other people. Similarly, for example, Islamophobia, often I feel like it goes down when you educate people, when people mix and people know people. some example stereotypes I'm not going to have because, oh, I know Muhammad, he's a Muslim and he's okay. So I'm not going to think negative about him. Do you think it's similar? That community is not mixing as much creates this racism?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it ultimately comes down to, again, just people not mixing enough, not sort of, educating themselves in a way. Maybe it's not a priority. Like, okay, I've always gone to this certain mosque. Why should I bother going to the others? Why would I want to go and learn about others?
Yeah.
So I think it's it stems from, I guess, behavioral attitudes and just the thinking of, I'm fine within my own community and just leaving it at that.
Okay, cool. What I wanted to do is obviously, inshallah, I want to read some of the ayat, some of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that obviously highlight the negative situation of racism. There's many to mention. So I took a few snippets here from an article from some quotes that I took a while ago. Inshallah, I want us to read these verses and inshallah we'll comment upon them. So there's a verse in the Quran which Allah says, "O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. Verily, the most honorable of you with Allah is that one who has a taqwa, has righteousness. Verily, Allah is all-knowing, all-aware." I think this is a beautiful verse to sort of start off about the criteria about how do we decide that somebody is more honorable in the sight of Allah? Because that's ultimately it's all about how does Allah view us. It's not about how we have these negative thoughts about Allah. It's our station with Allah. And this ayah I always find amazing because Allah starts with Ya ayyuhan nas, or mankind, or people. He didn't start with Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, or those who believe, or all those disbelievers or Jews. No, he started with everybody. Because Allah highlights here that every single person was created from a male and a female. And then Allah made us into these different nations and these different tribes. Ultimately, Allah allowed this to happen. Allah made us from different countries, from different nationalities, from different tribal backgrounds. And there was a reason which Allah mentions in the ayah, so that we may know one another. The purpose isn't for us to have grudges, to have issues with each other. Rather, it's for us to know one of each other and to, and understand people's different cultures. Alhamdulillah, one thing I really like is that different cultures, it makes it exciting, it makes it interesting. And there are some things in some other cultures that I really like, that I find really, like amazing that they do that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the hidden beauties of, just not really using race as a divider, and just kind of, seeing people for people and just, sort of working that way. But unfortunately, as I say, when you go the racism itself, it kind of within the Islamic community, within the Muslim community, it kind of manifests itself in very, very different ways, whether that be, as I say, again, separate mosques or people not mixing. But when you do, as you've said, and I'm pretty sure, I think with you as well, especially working with reverts from very, of different backgrounds, different races, I guess in a way you tend to not have those barriers, and I guess you probably see the really nice side and the beautiful side of all these cultures and races coming together.
And Allah obviously ends the ayah with, how do we know who's the best in the sight of Allah? It's not based on a person's, or who was my grandparents, or where was I born, or what are my looks, or how much money do I have, or what career do I have, or what position in the government. Rather, Allah mentions that verily the most honorable of you in the sight of Allah is the one who has taqwa, the one who has that God consciousness, the one who's, remembering Allah, trying to do the best in the religion and stay away from the prohibited things. That's how we decide who's, in the sight of Allah, who's the best, not based on anything else. And I think Islam is something like it came with practical solutions, how to change these things. I know myself, I think probably before I became Muslim and interacted with Muslims, the majority of people that I would have, to be honest, spoken and spent time with would have been white British people. There was not many non-white British people in my college, not really. There was some, and maybe if I met somebody who was from a different country, who had a beard and couldn't really speak English, I think I would had a negative maybe feeling with them. But it's a bit crazy now. Obviously now Alhamdulillah I became Muslim, I'm mixed with so many nationalities, so many people from backgrounds, Pakistani, Bengali, Indian, Somali, Afghani, Portuguese, Mozambique, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Egypt, Morocco, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, China, Hong Kong, all these different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Russia, Poland, France, all these different backgrounds, and I'm mixed with all these people. I feel like Islam really got rid of those issues that might have existed within me.
And that's interesting. I mean, would you say, before you became Muslim, how you said you'd be almost, sort of you'd have a negative reaction to someone who was a bit foreign, who was a bit different. Do you think that's because
it
of the
wasn't
way?
as if I'd be rude or anything like that. I think you just naturally, okay, this person's a bit different, or maybe you're gonna think some negative things about them because of media perceptions. You're
Yeah.
always told about, foreigners doing this and foreigners doing this. Subconsciously, it can affect you.
No, and I think, you've highlighted the point really well there. Again, it just comes out of fear, doesn't it? Fear of the unknown, ultimately. You think that somehow someone from a different race is, going to be, I don't know, dangerous in a way, just because they're different.
It's true. So we'll go through, inshallah, through some of the more ayat. This is an ayat that I found amazingly beautiful, which is often not mentioned. Often we don't hear it. Allah says in the Quran that, and among His signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the difference of your languages and your colours. Verily in that are indeed signs for men of sound knowledge. So Allah mentions that some of His ayat, some of His signs in the creation, is obviously the creation of the heavens and the earth in itself. But what's amazing is that Allah mentions that, the differences in our languages and in our colours is also one of the signs of Allah. And Allah mentions at the end that only those that have true sound knowledge, they really understand these signs. So that's one of the beautiful things, that we have these different languages, we have, different colours and different nationalities. It's not something negative that Allah doesn't, Allah not speaking about in the context of negative. Rather, He's drawing our attention to this issue, that this is something, like, it's good, it's normal, it's fine, it's not something negative. So I always find that ayah interesting, that mentions languages and colours.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously there's the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, which is quite famous, well known, mentioned a lot. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said that, "O you who believe, verily your Lord is one, and your father Adam is one. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a non-Arab over an Arab, or a white man over a black man, or a black man over a white man, except in terms of piety." Now you got to think, when the Prophet ﷺ said this, he's in a context which, Arab tribes, they were fighting, battling. They used to think that certain tribes are more better than the others. Even till this day, in Saudi Arabia and certain countries, certain tribes are a higher level, and it's not allowed to marry a lower level tribe. It's seen as wrong, even today. But back then, it was even more. Tribes are fighting. They were thinking hugely negative on anyone that was non-Arab, from Abyssinia. Maybe he was a black slave. Maybe he was Persian or Roman, or he was Jewish. The Arabs used to think bad of, used to think down of their lineage of these people. So it's amazing that the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't hold back. He openly and clearly said that, Arab and non-Arab, they're not better just based on their lineage or where they're from. Rather, they're only better in the eyes of Allah based on their piety. And similarly with somebody who's black or white, or Arab or black, they're equal in the eyes of Allah, except those that are more righteous. And then the companions, then he asked the companions, "Have I conveyed the message?" And they said, "The messenger of Allah has conveyed the message." So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's incredibly important, because it's still, as you said, and it's not just within, for example, the Arab culture, even within communities, there's that notion of, oh no, this person is, their parents are laborers and we're landowners, or whatever it is. That can often be a basis for division within a race or culture.
Definitely, as you see that the race is the same, they're both, lineage is the same, but what's different is their class status.
Yeah.
This person is a lower class manual labor, and this person's, I don't know, royalty, or he's a lawyer, and that creates divides among society as well. But whereas Islam, and if you look at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of the companions were very rich. Some of them had, quote unquote, good jobs, and then some of them were extremely poor, who were just living outside and living off handouts. But they all mixed with each other, and they all were brothers in Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught them to be brothers and sisters in faith. There's none of this, oh, you're a lower class citizen because you don't do this, or you don't have wealth, or you don't look good. He
Yeah.
said that this was jahiliyyah, this was the ignorance that the people had before the Prophet came. So I think it's a beautiful point. But that still
Yeah.
exists. People will look down upon other people, or he's a labourer, he's dirty, or he's this and that. But that's not correct. Rather, we're all brothers and sisters in humanity and in faith. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I think
one-
that can be said for any sort of dividing factor. We're talking about, for example, someone's profession or someone's lineage. I think it's in all aspects, even down to someone's skin color. And this can be within communities, how that's a factor for dividing people, when in reality, our Prophet says, he said it so beautifully that there is no such division, there's no such superiority between, people. But I think that's something that people do easily forget.
One thing that I do find interesting and find is this issue of colorism, in the sense of, from my understanding and what I've known when I speak to people, is that often in like Pakistani, Bengali, Indian, Asian community, there is this thing about, if somebody is lighter, they're more beautiful or they're more desired. And on a recent tour we did with the Islamic Diversity Center on about racism in Islam, one of the speakers, she said, like, this video of like skin products that you can buy in India and Asia, which whitens the skin. And then she showed us videos of, similarly in Africa, they were putting, like, they couldn't afford the real cream, so they were making, like, putting all these chemicals together, putting all over their body, and then wrapping their body in like cling film, and like staying like that all night, even though it can cause them cancer, and they know this, but they want to look more lighter because then they'll be more beautiful in the eyes of men and this and that. I just found this concept very strange, that they find the light skin subconsciously, even though they may not openly say it, but in their language and how they market products, it shows that they find it more beautiful or more desirable.
No, absolutely. I mean, when I went to Bangladesh, the adverts, so the product itself was called Fair and Lovely. So, that in itself, I think, says a lot. So that was just honestly plastered everywhere, adverts everywhere. You got to imagine, especially somewhere like Bangladesh, the majority of the population, they're very dark. And I think, it's a beautiful thing. It's different, but I guess it's a remnant of colonialism and the idea that
do you feel it comes from when the ruling British, and they obviously lighten, and do you think it came from that people, we want to be like these people?
I would say majorly, yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, there's the idea as well that, if someone's darker, it's because, they're out in the sun, they're manually, they're doing a lot of manual labor compared to someone who's inside, maybe in the shade. But I think a lot of it does stem from, I say colonialism. And, when you look at sort of the West and it's all people with white and fair skin, it does stem from that. And it's interesting because you mentioned language there, but I can certainly say within, Bangla, the language is geared towards almost favoring fairer people, and it's something that I only recently realized. But for example, and I think a lot of people of South Asian background, and they'll be able to relate to this word, but saf, which means clean, is also used to refer to someone with fairer skin. They have the saf rung or whatever it is, and I just, whereas for someone that's darker, certainly within Bengali, again, but they're called moila, which means dirty. And when they're talking about people of being saf or moila skin, again, they don't do it in their heads. They're not being offensive. But when you actually, you break down the words, you think, what on earth? How are you calling someone with fairer skin cleaner? And what does that? How does that make that person feel? They're going to grow up thinking, well, I'm clearly better. I'm cleaner, I've got fairer skin.
I think
vice versa.
Subconsciously in people's minds, they will feel negative about themselves, or they will feel all better about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're growing up with it, as you're saying, those that what you saw, people in Africa sort of tying things up with cling film, and even though they may harm themselves in the long run, they're not bothered. It's because of that immense social pressure, because of this negative, sort of view that certain shades are, more beautiful.
Hmm. Definitely, it's really like I think it'd be really interesting. Like, why is that the situation? But
Mm.
inshallah, we'll highlight a few more narrations here. My computer's gone weird, so I can't share them. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that those who boast about their forefathers should desist, or they will be less significant before Allah than the beetle that rolls up the dung with its nose. So the Prophet says that people who are boasting about their lineages and who their forefathers are and where they come from, they need to stop, because in the sight of Allah they'll become so significant, like how to us that little beetle that's rolling dung in the desert that we don't even pay attention to, you'll become like that. And then the Prophet said that Allah has taken away from you the arrogance of al-jahiliyyah, of ignorance, and its pride in forefathers. So a person is either a pious believer or not. All the people are from the children of Adam, and Adam was created from dust. So the point here in this narration, the Prophet again, he's refuting that idea of people or my lineage or where I came from, that they shouldn't have this in their hearts. And the famous narration I always find quite beautiful is that Abu Hurairah said that the Prophet ﷺ said that verily Allah does not look at your appearances and your wealth, but He looks to your heart and into your deeds. Meaning that Allah doesn't necessarily, look, or how do you look? Are you beautiful according to society? Are you ugly according to society? Allah doesn't necessarily care about, or this person has loads of money. Rather, He cares about the situation of your heart. What is your situation with Allah? And rather, He cares about what's the actions that you're doing? Are you a good person who's benefiting society, who's worshipping Allah, or are you a person that's not?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think that's something very easy to forget. But I think, again, as with anything, if you focus on Islam and you make that your priority, these things will kind of fall into place.
definitely, inshallah, we'll finish, I think, on this one story. It's a story that I always find amazing, of Abu Dhar and Bilal radiallahu anhu. So Abu Humama reported that Abu Dhar reproached Bilal about his mother, saying to him, "O son of a black woman." So Bilal went to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he told him what he said. The Prophet became angry, and then Abu Dhar came, although he was unaware of what Bilal had told him. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned away from him, meaning he turned away from Abu Dhar. And Abu Dhar obviously was hurt by this. He asked, "O Messenger of Allah, have you turned away because of something that you've been told?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Have you reproached Bilal about his mother?" Then the Prophet ﷺ said, "By the one who revealed the book to Muhammad ﷺ, none is more virtuous over another except by righteous deeds. You have none but an insignificant amount." So this story, there's longer versions, but this is a shorter version, that Abu Dhar, he said something horrible to Bilal out of anger, out of his situation. He called him the son of a black woman in a negative manner. And obviously, when Bilal told the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet was angry, and the Prophet wasn't happy with this and turned away from Abu Dhar and clarified that this is incorrect. And then in another wording or another narration of it, Abu Dhar narrated that there was a quarrel between me and another man whose mother was a non-Arab, and I called her bad names. The man mentioned the complaint to me to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Did you abuse so and so?" I said yes. He said, "Did you call his mother bad names?" I said yes. The Prophet ﷺ, said to Abu Dhar that you still have the traits of al-jahiliyyah, of the pre-Islamic ignorance. I said, "I still have them even in my old age." He said, "Yes, they are your brothers, and Allah has put them under your command. So the one under whose hand Allah has put his brother should feed him from what he eats, and give him dresses of what he wears, and should not ask him to do things beyond his capacity." And if at all he asks him to do a task, he should help him therein. So again, in this other narration, the Prophet rebuked him, saying that, you still have this ignorance of before Islam, you still have that in your heart by abusing this person because of his mother's color of her skin. And I think sometimes that still exists today. People will still, if they get angry or they're only joking, but they'll still mock one another based on nationality, based on race. And sometimes it's quite easy. I think often amongst, with the brothers that are Pakistani and Bengali, will crack jokes with one another about this and that. But in reality, the truth is that it's not necessarily appropriate, because people, even though they may not say it, they may actually be hurt by what you say.
Yeah, and I think as well, even through, banter, joking, especially about races and things like that, ultimately it normalizes that way of thinking. And it's
Yeah.
something, it's better to avoid it, because by joking about someone's race or someone's color, in your head you're trivializing sort of the issue, but as you said, it could very rightly, hurt someone, and they could carry that sort of in their heart and not say anything, and that just
Definitely, yeah.
creates further divisions.
And I feel like where this racism issue really hits the pinnacle is the issue of marriage. We know that from the Prophet ﷺ that he told us that if a man with good religion and good character wishes to marry your daughter, then you should allow it. And the Prophet told us that we should marry women and our spouses for their religion, not necessarily because of their lineages and where they're from.
Yeah.
But sadly, today what we see is, especially amongst the youth, is people not able to get married, people struggling for years, people doing zina, people doing things that are not allowed because they want to marry someone who is maybe a different caste within the same thing, maybe from a different tribe, maybe from a different country. But the parents won't allow it, and it causes all these issues that happen. But when we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he married someone who was of a Jewish descent, Safiya. He married a woman who would have dark black skin. It's right that Sauda had that. He married a woman who was an Arab. He married a woman, he married different people from different areas and different tribes. And the companions, again, they married one another not based on where they were from, but based on their religiosity and who they were as people. But sadly, in the Muslim community, that people don't seem to be following that sunnah. Maybe we highlight a lot of other sunnahs and other things that we should do, but we don't follow like those things that go against our maybe feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it's just that thing of kind of, educating ourselves and realizing that, this is from the Sunnah. Marrying someone of a different race isn't something new and, radical. It's been there all the time, and it's something that's encouraged, because again, as you've, really rightly put it, it's you're supposed to look at someone's iman, someone's character, someone's deen over anything else.
Definitely, because I feel like ultimately, once you're married, you're gonna your family are not with that person every single day. You are. So that's why the Prophet highlighted, okay, what's his religion like? Is he somebody who's praying? Is he somebody that's gonna give you your rights in Islam, or is he somebody who's doesn't care about Allah, doesn't care about religion, is gonna necessarily abuse you? And again, what's his character like? Is he somebody that has a good character that you can get on with, or is he somebody who's angry or harsh? Because that's the reality. When you marry someone, it's not necessarily, oh, where were you born, and oh, what's your great grandfather's name, and what's your title, and what do you do as this? No, the real things are going to be religion and character ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I can first-hand vouch for that, because again, when we were set to get married, a lot of people did make a lot of comments saying, oh, well, this marriage might not work out because he's different and he's from a different background. But ultimately, when it comes to living with each other, on a day-to-day basis, as you've said, it literally comes down to your manners and your deen. That's what I think, well, that is the most important thing. And that's what, allows everything else to sort of carry on. Not someone's skin color or someone's culture. So I think, it's just taking away that negative sort of thinking, and going back to the Sunnah.
Definitely got a comment here. Sadly, many marry for other reasons besides religion. Our Prophet ﷺ married older women and divorced women. And that's a good point. I think one other issue is that a woman, if she gets divorced, suddenly it's difficult for her to get married. Or if she becomes older than what's classed as okay, it's difficult to get married. When it's in the time of the companions, this was never an issue. If somebody got divorced, it was no problem for them to then go get married again. There wasn't a negative stereotype, because the Prophet ﷺ, he stopped this. He married women who had previously been divorced. He married women that had children from previous marriages, had like sort of stepchildren that he took care of and looked after. But many of us don't look at this or think about this. So alhamdulillah, I think it was a good show. I think we touched upon some good topics. But sadly, it is the final show of the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, it's been good. How have you found it, Freya? You've been tuning in, listening to me,
Yep,
talking away in my office?
#1 fan, definitely.
Alhamdulillah, good. But inshallah, I think it's been good. I think it was a good experience. Previous years, I've done a show once a week or twice a week. So to do a show every single day, just get guests on, prepare content, it was a little challenging, but I enjoyed it. And I think, inshallah, maybe I'll do something after Ramadan, or we'll be back next year doing similar shows. So I want to thank all listeners for listening, and inshallah, people benefited from the small things that I touched upon. One final comment before we go. Character and religion is very important because life has its tests, ups and downs. An honest person is very important. Today we take culture over religion, and this is why we are in the state that we're in. Definitely, I agree. When things get down, there's arguments, there's difficulties. Character and the religion is really going to get you through that, not necessarily skin complexion. That's the reality and the truth. So, Jazakallah khairan for everyone for listening. I want to thank you, Freya, for coming on the show today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Any final comments you want to make before we end?
No, I just want to say, just well done for, all your efforts with this, and a, bigger thank you to Fast FM as well for providing this platform. I think it's been really, really beneficial, and I'm sure that our listeners have enjoyed this as well, and inshallah we can continue this on as well.
Inshallah, definitely. Awesome. Okay, Jazakallah khairan everybody for listening. This has been for Newcastle Fast FM, and this has been From Darkness to Light with myself, Richard Coupland, and Faria. Inshallah, we'll see you next year or another time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Don't you just hate it? Every time you switch on the TV, scroll through Facebook, or read a newspaper, it's Muslims have done this and Muslims have done that. They're barbaric, this religion is dangerous, etc., etc., etc. The saddest thing is that so many people out there believe it. It's people like you and I who need to dismantle these misconceptions by showing how beautiful Islam is. If it wasn't for such amazing dawah organizations out there, many people wouldn't be Muslim today. One such amazing organization is the Islamic Diversity Center. For over 17 years now, they've been building bridges within communities and calling people towards Islam through education, awareness, engagement, and empowerment. Their amazing work has resulted in hundreds of people accepting Islam and thousands more understanding that Islam is not about killing and murder. Rather, it is a peaceful religion full of understanding, harmony, and worship. In order to continue guiding the masses, they urgently need to raise £50,000. That's just 500 people donating £100 each. Now, as Muslims, if we can't sacrifice our time and resources to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then at least we should sacrifice a tiny percentage of our wealth, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. Please donate £100 today and earn Sadaqah Jariyah on your scale of good deeds from now until the end of the Day of Judgment, where your only hope of entering Jannah is through the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please, lastly, hit the share button. وجزاكم الله خير.